All right, welcome back to another episode of What's Hockey. We're going to get into Stanley Cup Finals talk. There were 3 games played since we last recorded. But before we jump into that, we always start with Around That Hockey. And Keaton, there were there was a head coach firing, a hiring, and some trades going on around the league. What you got on that?
Yeah, so it looks like, we'll start with the firing. Pascal Vincent got fired from the Blue Jackets. Following, I think it was on the 14th, I can't remember. I think it was the 28th, they hired Waddell, the new
The
GM.
GM.
So they're basically just cleaning up shop, refreshing the whole system, just trying to figure out what works and what needs to stay, that kind of thing. So, I mean, it just seems almost right. I don't believe they have a replacement in mind just yet, but I mean, ultimately they'll figure it out during the off season. They've got plenty of time. They unfortunately were very last, and the Metropolitan Division, which in and of itself was just horrible. You see the Islanders and Capitals squeak in with negative differentials. I just don't understand that. Pretty wild. But yeah, I mean, fresh new start for the Blue Jackets. Seems like there will be a little bit of a spotlight on them, just see what they can do with this revamped system. So yeah, hopefully they can just not finish last. I guess that's kind of their goal going forward at this point.
For sure. And Waddell just getting there, he's probably gonna, pick his own head coach, obviously. So he'll get the
Sure,
staff
yeah.
he wants in place, and we'll see if the Blue Jackets can turn it around
Any
in the future. So
Not sure if anybody else know that, but Waddell came from Carolina Canes, and they've been pretty hot recently. So I mean, it should be a pretty good match. So let's see what the Blue Jackets can do, and hopefully get that team a lot better.
for
But
sure.
yeah, again, the we've got a firing. Sharks. Oh wait, no, a hiring. Sorry. Sharks got a new head coach, Warsawski. Doesn't really have much, eye popping, stats or anything like that. Just kind of a general head coach, but apparently he's the first Jewish head coach in the NHL for the last 32 years. So that's something. Pretty much all they hype that guy's gonna get. So yeah, let's see if the Sharks can not finish last. I don't. Did they finish last? I think they were like
Did they get
they
ahead
were
of the
close to last.
Ducks? I know
I
those
can't
two were
remember.
fighting for the worst
Yeah.
for most of the season. Give me 1 second. I'll figure that out for you. The Sharks did finish last. They had
Okay.
they
Just
had
barely
12
under
less
the
points
Ducks.
than the Ducks actually.
Yeah. I mean, I knew the Ducks were terrible, but yeah, the Sharks are a lot
Sure.
worse. I think they had like a negative 110 plus differential or something crazy. So
Just
yeah,
horrendous.
hopefully they are revamping the system with Warsawski and trying to get that taken care of. We had actually a few trades going on. I do know that there was a waiver happen. Rangers waived Barclay Goodrow, and
Hmm.
I don't even think 12 hours later the Sharks picked him up. So pretty decent player, I guess. Just on a pretty decent team with the Rangers. So hopefully they can bolster the Sharks team with that new addition.
More than
So
anything, I
hopefully they
think
can
the
keep.
Rangers were just trying to clear the cap space, and the Sharks
Oh
just
sure,
need players in general who are decent. So
right,
that made total sense on both sides.
right, exactly. But yeah, and on the way there were 3 trades. One specifically was a little bit more eye popping because I don't know why the Capitals even traded for him. But Pierre-Luc Dubois is now a Capital. Got traded for Darcy Quimper or Quimper, I don't know.
Kemper,
Straight
yeah,
up,
just
no
Kemper.
salary retention on either side. So yeah, I mean he's been pretty much a menace. PLD. This guy has been drafted by Columbus. Seemed like a promising young star center to build around. Not soon after he signs an extension with them, he requests a trade, and he wanted to go, or I think he requested a trade, gets traded to Winnipeg, and in Winnipeg he wanted to get traded to Montreal like 1 to 2 years later, something crazy, and they didn't want to trade him to Montreal. They ended up getting him to the Kings, and with the Kings he signs an 8-year, $68 million contract, and not even a year later he's now a Capital.
Yeah,
So crazy. I don't know what they're doing, but I mean, it seems like they're probably only really seeing about 1 to 2 years for this guy, unless he can pull his head out his ass. But yeah, I mean, he seems like he should be a promising young player, but I mean, the last year he's just been hella mediocre. So I don't know what really you can do with that guy, but I know the Kings really wanted to just get rid of that cap space. So yeah, good move by the Kings, I'll say for
For
sure.
sure. And those are two
Um,
teams that they did make the playoffs right there. They were just a little bit short. And so half of it is, of course, getting rid of some salary, but the other is you think that Kemper might be more reliable. And so we'll see how that works out for both teams.
yeah, and another trade, especially with a goalie, got made with Calgary Flames and the Devils. Jacob Markstrom is now a Devil, and the Devils trade a first rounder in 25 and defenseman Kevin Bowl. The first rounder actually happens to be top 10 protected, so if the Devils end up being in the top 10 picks, then they'll keep that draft pick and they'll have to send them the next year. So that's pretty interesting as well. But yeah, I mean, Jacob Markstrom's he's 34, uh, solid vet, and looks like Kevin Bowl is 24, so a younger player. Just hopefully bolster the Calgary Flames, just see what they can build around, and hopefully just kind of get some play out of these young guys. So yeah, pretty interesting. And I didn't really see too much on that third trade, but you said that there was one
Uh,
with the Sharks and Stars. Was that right?
yeah, Ty Delandry was moved 2 days ago from the Stars to the Sharks for a fourth round pick. That's more the Stars kind of moving his salary. There's a surplus of young forwards that the Stars have,
Yeah,
and they can use that fourth round pick, to bring in a new prospect and prepare for the future. So
for
I don't
sure.
want to say Ty Delandry is a redundancy, but he kind of was, and that's why he was moved at this point. Good
I mean,
young
he
player though. I mean, the Sharks
played a
could def the Sharks.
solid series
Yeah,
in excuse me, in the playoffs. I mean, he wasn't that bad. I think he scored a game winner at one point. So I mean, he's not
he
like a
got one
terrible
off his
player.
face. Yeah, he's a real energetic player though. So I think the Sharks are getting a good young piece that he's
But
going to be
yeah, like you
hungry.
said, the Stars just have too many players like that. So
Yeah. But yeah, that was that trade. So Stars got a fourth for that, and well, yeah,
nice.
yeah,
So yeah, not too bad. A few things have happened. Maybe a few trades, more hirings, firings. Obviously, during the off season, a lot more stuff is going to happen. But yeah, pretty much so far, not really much else has happened as far as any kind of I guess movement team to
for sure.
team. But
Yeah.
yeah, outside of that, obviously the big meat of the thing is we got the Stanley Cup, and we've
Yes.
seen 3 games since,
And
and
here,
it's been quite the ride.
real quick, before we jump into Stanley Cup talk, give me 1 second. I got a little technical
Oh yeah.
difficulty over here, so just give me 1 second. We're back to it. Stanley Cup Finals talk. Keaton, you were just about to get into it. What'd you have for us there?
Yeah, we've seen 3 games out of that series. First 2 games were kind of a wash on the Panthers side. That third game kind of looked like the Panthers were just going to win it in 4. It was kind of crazy, but yeah, they came back in that last period. Not obviously enough to win, but it was, I believe, 4-3 at the end of
Yeah,
that game. So they scored 2 goals in that last period, and since then it's been all Edmonton. It's pretty crazy. They've outscored the Panthers 15-4 in the last 7 periods. Um, it's crazy. Yeah,
it's a complete
pretty
flip of what
stunned.
we had seen previously in that in the series. I mean, even in Game 3, Florida does win that one 4-3, but Bobrovsky had to make 30 something saves that game. Like Edmonton came out firing. Obviously, it was too little, too late, getting 2 in the third period. But I mean, you've
Right.
seen a completely different team in this series in the last 2 games, or like you said, 7 periods, including that third period.
Yeah.
Eight
And
to
I'm not sure
one.
about game 3, but I mean, Connor McDavid, the last 2 games, he has 4 points.
Yeah,
And I don't know if I mentioned on the actual podcast, but I know I was talking to Rudy about, hey, what if McDavid breaks Gretzky's all-time point record for the playoffs? And he's four away.
Is he 5
Maybe
away?
it's a little bit less.
Here, I'll look it up.
Yeah, I think he's 5 away. It's 42 and 47, I think. So yeah, I mean it's ridiculous. All he has to do is just replicate what he's done in the last 2 games, and he's beaten that record. And
Which, mind you,
it's
is a
just
lot, but he is the best player in the league right now, so it's definitely
oh, for
possible.
sure. But I mean, it's one of those things where a lot of people have just would have been outstanding to have 40 plus points in the playoffs. It's insane.
Yeah, he is
It's
5
almost
away.
unheard of.
He is 5 away at this point. It's so funny because the two people the two people in 5th and 6th place it's one person actually. It's Wayne Gretzky. He passed him twice, and then he's one behind Wayne Gretzky's 3rd place record, which is 42.
And then Lemieux.
And then Lemieux, and then it's Gretzky again. Like, goodness, Wayne Gretzky. And we talked about it in a previous podcast too, where we were looking at Austin Matthews trying to break or at least get close to the point record, and it's all the goal record, and it's all Wayne Gretzky. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
It's not even close. I mean, I think Lemieux might be close to maybe in the top 5 for some records.
You know what's insane? The record, it was set in 18 games.
Yeah.
McDavid's at 23 right now, and McDavid is playing out of this world in those 23 games to get 47 points, or 42 points is
42.
Otherworldly. But in 5 less games, Gretzky's got 5 more points. That's nuts, man. That is insane.
Right? I mean, it's absolutely insane. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be the same thing between McDavid and Gretzky's just because of the more games factor. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with the Calvin Johnson receiver record. There's one more game now, so it's not always going to be the same thing. But
always have to bring it back to Detroit.
Oh, what do you mean? I don't always have to do
you're
it
good.
at all. But anyway, it's just pretty ridiculous. I mean, five points in 2 games, and he's averaging 4 points these last 2 games. I mean, that seems highly doable. Granted, I mean, the first 2 games he was non-existent in that series.
And they kind of have to win. So they have to win tonight's game.
Oh, sure.
Doing it all in one is going to,
Yeah, exactly. They would have to win and force that game 7 and potentially even win that one because, I mean, granted, 4 points in 1 game is pretty crazy to have and still lose. But,
for sure.
They're just turning it on. And I don't know what the Panthers have been doing. I mean, it seems like they've kind of solved the Panthers, and the Panthers just don't really have much of a change.
Well, and the thing
I do know that they've... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, I mean, Stuart Skinner has really elevated his game from the first 2 games.
For sure.
Where in game 5, they won 8-1, or was that that was game 4. They won 8-1.
4, yeah.
And game 5, between those 2, he allowed 4 goals, where earlier in that series, I mean, he allowed, I should have had it pulled up. But I know in game 3, he allowed 4 goals just there. And then in the next 2 games, he combines for that. Games 1 and 2. Game 1, he allowed 3.
I think it was 6.
Or I'm sorry.
I think it was 3 and 3 for the first 2 games.
3 and 4, but I think 1 was an empty netter, if I'm not wrong. So sure. Yeah.
Could be.
But I mean, just the elevation in his game, the elevation and they've done it consistently well throughout the playoffs, with their penalty kill is just insane. The last 2 games, you open the scoring
goals are crazy.
With short-handed goals, man. Their defense just has become impenetrable. It's causing Florida to take shots of less quality than what they're used to. I swear that team, coming in the series, we talked about how quick they are, and that when they're in the offensive zone, they're so dangerous. There's so many players that can both create and score. And it seems
passing it around, shooting it, passing it, shooting it, keeping it in possession. It's crazy because, I mean, it seems like the Panthers just have it on lock. But
that's the thing is that these last few games, you've seen the Edmonton defense, each line play so much better. You see their forwards coming back and helping. It's a total team unit. And even when they're down a man, they still get it done. And in fact, sometimes score on you. So it's just a really dangerous team, even when you feel like you should have the advantage when you're Florida. And I think that the thing, too, is that Edmonton is seeing guys like Connor Brown score goals. it's more than just McDavid. You know, you're seeing the whole team pitch in and make
Yeah, it's
plays.
not just Drysaitel either, because I feel
I,
like Drysaitel and McDavid haven't really. Well, McDavid's been doing it, but Drysaitl's not really been in it these last 2 games.
Holloway puts in 2 goals in that 8 goal performance. I mean,
I
it's
believe he's a rookie, right, or something like that.
I can find that out
For
for
a younger player.
you. He's 22. I do know that. I don't know how long he's been called up to the pros, but I mean, yeah. But it's like what we're saying and what we said in the past that uh, to get to this point, you have to have a deep team. It can't be led by 2 guys, which the Oilers are kind of, but they're where they are right now because of the crew around them. They've elevated their play to go from people who would have been afterthoughts to us to now, like, okay, now I know this guy can play. I mean, it's the Stanley Cup Finals, and Holloway's elevated his game. And there's other people. I'm just blanking on some names, but as a team, they're playing at such a high level. Now, I think it would be funny if we're singing their praises and then they go ahead and drop a goose egg tonight and lose this
Yeah.
one. But I just can't see that. Now, I wouldn't have seen 8-1 coming. And this last win, I could have seen. We talked about in the last podcast that I thought they would at least win 1 before we record again. They decided to win 2 in that time. And so going into game 6, man, it's a lot
Yeah.
better of a series than I think we had anticipated after the first 3.
Yeah, I mean it's. I mean, I said that it would have been a 7 game series before it even started, and the way the Panthers started those first 2 games, it made me question that it was just going to be a sweep, and now it even seems like it's going to go to Game 7 because of how the Oilers have been playing, and just been playing pretty hot, and just really just seems like Florida just doesn't have any answers these last 7 periods. I mean, I've seen them score a few times, but I don't know. It's just kind of crazy. But with the feels like Florida just has all the star power, and Edmonton just has players that have been playing. But the Stars just need to step up. I don't know what Reinhardt's doing. I don't know what Tarasenko's doing. I don't know what Verhaeghe's doing. You know, all these players on the Panthers.
Markov. I mean,
Step
they
up.
have so
Exactly.
many names coming into the series where, again, and this might have been us just being a little inexperienced when it comes to
Biased.
hockey, just because we knew the big names Edmonton and we learned every big name of Florida, but we completely left out dudes like Bouchard on Edmonton, who got 3 assists last game. I mean, these are guys
Yeah, he's
that
a solid defenseman.
and that's the thing, though, that they're solid players, they're decent players, they're playing above their pay grade. They're playing at a really, really high level. A lot of credit goes to the head coach, too. I think what he's done, realizing that I think he
'Cause
had
they were either last or almost dead last, like second to last with when Knobloch took over. I think it was like within the first 3 weeks or something like that. But
yeah.
yeah, they were not looking good at all, and they jumped right in. I think they ended up being second or third. You know, I think it was third,
I
second
think in the Western Conference or in their
standing
division. Oh, I think it was
division.
third. I think it was third. I want to say Colorado was ahead of. No, Vancouver was ahead
Well,
of
the
them.
division, not
Oh, their
division,
division.
not conference.
Yeah. Vancouver's in their conference, right, or division. I think
Yeah,
Vancouver was ahead of them. Yeah, Vancouver was ahead of them. They finished second in their division.
yeah.
But yeah,
I mean,
no,
with 104 points, I mean, they were one of the few teams that, well, I guess most of them did, but I mean, yeah, it just seemed like they've got a pretty solid team, and I almost look like the Oilers were going to look like the Sharks.
yeah.
But,
I mean, they were the
yeah.
first one to fire their head coach, and we talked about how there's that new manager, new head coach bump where your players just play harder for
Not to
them.
mention McDavid and Knobloch have that already chemistry. They already have that built up. So, I mean, you know, it's always going to be pretty good. And I don't think he was playing all that well in the first few weeks either, McDavid himself. So,
right.
Ever since Knobloch came in, I feel like it's just been a great thing for the Oilers.
Yeah, and like I think Knobloch, he has a lot of trust in the younger players in that team. I think it's given him confidence. I think that's why they're playing the way they are at this point. And I think it's why they made it here. I mean, going up against Dallas, Dallas was the favorite, and Dallas should have at that point
they
we
were
didn't.
looking like they were going to win the cup. I mean, I don't know. After that Vegas series and after that Colorado series, I felt like they were just the sure winner
Yeah.
of the Stanley Cup in general. But
yeah, so I think Knobloch needs a lot of credit for what he's done, instilling that confidence. He's put up great tactical lines. He's done great strategies when it comes to their special teams, and it's paying off dividends for them right now. Now, do they force a game 7? I think they do, but it's still a tall task in front of them. Even though they are limiting good shots, Florida still had 30 shots the last 2 games, if I'm not wrong. Last 3
they've been
games.
putting pucks on net. It's just Stuart Skinner's been saving them.
Yes.
I mean, granted, 100%. They're not always the best shots in the world, like we were saying, but I mean, even still, I mean, you still have to have somebody to save it.
It's what you have to have. It's what you need to do. I mean, there was a goal. I think it was Marchment against Skinner early in that series where he just like tossed it at the net, and Skinner just messed up. It goes, kind of between his arm and the post. He didn't know what to do with it, and it was a trash shot. It wasn't of quality, but you got to put it on net. Each shot could lead to a rebound, and then someone's there to scoop it up and score.
And I've seen one that's shot like well far away, and the goalie doesn't even see it, and it just ekes in.
Sure.
There's so many people in front of him, and he just can't see the actual puck itself.
Yeah, so you got to keep and I think Florida will. I think Florida is designed to keep grinding. They've got the speed. They've got a deep roster. They're talented. So I think they will continue. They should get 30 shots on net tonight against Skinner. I think so, on the other end, defensively, Edmonton's strong as hell. We'll see if they bend a little but don't break. I am expecting Edmonton, that is, to win tonight's game. It is in Edmonton, and then I think they force Game 7 going to Florida. And in that game, I don't know if Florida's mentally beat at that point, but I do think Florida should still lift the cup at home on this after Game 7. What do you think as far as the next few games potentially?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it'll be interesting to see exactly how they play this game because, I mean, it is in Edmonton, and, it just seems like there's a lot of down spirits on the Panthers' end because, I mean, who wants to live in Edmonton even for a day? But, I mean, honestly, it's just down. I mean, if they score 8-1 in this next game, I can't even imagine the Panthers winning in Game 7.
I can't foresee 8-1.
I don't either, but it's happened. So, I mean, I don't really know what can happen. I mean, if it seems like that's what's going to happen in Game 6, then honestly, it might be a Canada Stanley Cup. Canadian Stanley Cup.
We'll see if our neighbors to the north pull it off. I do think it ends up in Florida, all the way at the south of the United States. But I don't know, man. I think you and I, after games 1 and 2, we recorded and we were stunned at this series.
I still think that the Panthers have it. If they continue to play how they've been playing and Game 6 looks horrendous, then I don't really see it happening.
Yeah, and really it's kind of like the last win they had last game. It was just the crispness of how Edmonton was playing as far as like the goal that they scored. It wasn't like overbearing. It was that you got to break away. It was good defensive play on one end. You force a fast break. You get
in Game 5 or
score. Game 5. Sorry, did I say 6?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you just said the most recent one. I just wanted to make sure you were talking about the Oilers.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Panthers.
Yeah, for sure. And but I think like the barrage, unless Skinner can remain just as calm as he has, then yeah, I mean there's a reason I'm picking Florida in Game 7. I think that barrage just becomes overwhelming. I don't foresee Florida's attack letting up, and I don't foresee. I do think Edmonton's special teams is still just as good. I think the special teams and the defense hold well for Game 6. They force 7, and then Game 7, I think the flood breaks, and Florida does get a win in that one. But, right now, man, Edmonton's defense, Edmonton's special teams, and their crisp play when they do have the puck in the other end is the reason we're looking at a competitive series right now when it looked like it was all
tough
done.
Series. Yeah. I At this point, I don't even know who's gonna win. I mean, it's pretty crazy because it feels like the first two games it was all Florida. The next three were almost all Oilers. So I mean, yeah, very interesting series. Great hockey. I'm really enjoying it.
For sure, man. For
Super
sure.
chippy too, so a lot of fights are happening. So easy.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing too is like you want to see the chippiness. Sometimes you got to send a message, but also you don't want to risk a game misconduct and you're out of the game and you put your
Yeah.
team at a disadvantage. But hey, man, the more I love a competitive game, I love fights and I love some aggression. Got to keep your head cool at the same time. But I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Entertain me, baby. Let's go. Anyway, so you predict Game 6. It all ends tonight with Florida lifting Lord Stanley in Canada. Is that your prediction?
Yeah, I mean, it'll all depend on how they play, but yeah, I mean, they are one win away. All they have to do is win. So
Yeah,
I still feel like they have the tools to do it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, if they win, Edmonton wins tonight, it's just going to be a really weird game seven. But yeah, it'll be great because it's extended and more sports to watch. So yeah, I love it. But
100%.
it is
Yeah.
a little, I guess, frustrating from the Panthers' point of view to be like, you just have to win. Just win. What are you doing?
Hmm.
But yeah, the Oilers are playing a great game, and I love to see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, I think that'll wrap up this episode. Keen, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, it should be it. But yeah, we'll catch you guys next time. See who wins this Stanley Cup in the next couple
For
games, maybe
sure.
one.
We will let y'all know about that and any other dealings that are done, firings, hirings, signings, trades, everything.
ATC.
Uh, we got you. But yeah, that'll be it for this episode. Y'all take care. Peace out.